Being a mom is like 1,000 little jobs wrapped up into one amazing responsibility. I know from watching my own mom and how crazy it is switching back and forth from traumatic nurse to afternoon mathematician, from organizer-in-chief to five-star chef. This Mother's Day, show her how much you appreciate every job she does with a special limited-time offer from 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you get ahead of the Mother's Day rush, 1-800-Flowers will give you an exclusive 36 for 36 offer. 36 sorbet roses for just $36. That's only $1 per rose. With an impressive mix of pastel shades in pink, orange, and lavender, these roses are guaranteed to make her smile. Stunning sorbet roses are the perfect way to surprise all of the moms in your life. Wife, aunt, sister, mother. These breathtaking roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. 36 sorbet roses for only $36. It's an amazing offer, but hurry because it expires Friday. Just pick your delivery date and 1-800-Flowers will handle the rest. Don't put this off, guys. Order today from 1-800-Flowers.com. It's what mom would want you to do. To order 36 sorbet roses for only $36, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click on the radio icon, and enter code WINGO. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code WINGO. Hurry, the offer ends Friday. Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
Golic and Wingo on the road, presented by Progressive Insurance. Live from the site of the 2018 NFL Draft.
With the third pick, the New York Jets select Sam Darnold. With the second pick, the New York Giants select Saquon Barkley. With the first pick, the Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield, quarterback, Oklahoma.
Now, live from the site of the 2018 NFL Draft, here's Golic and Wingo.
Or Golic and Golic. Golic and Wingo live on the road here, presented by Progressive Insurance on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are back out at 1010 Collins Event Center here in Arlington, Texas this morning. Much warmer, much more excited still. I'm not sure if this is the actual weather turning or if this is still the buzz around this area from what was an incredible first round of the NFL Draft last night. We're going to have plenty of guests coming up this morning on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Sal Paolantonio, Jeff Darlington, Tom Waddle, and, of course, the commissioner, Roger Goodell, going to join us live out here at 9:15 to recap what was an unbelievable night one in the NFL Draft.
Yeah, always interesting to draft the storylines and what you think the storylines are going in and then what progresses through the first round. And it was, during our show yesterday that Adam Schefter came up with the tweet that he was hearing more and more and more that it was going to be Baker Mayfield going number one when we all thought it was going to be Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, that all the other GMs, not the Browns, the other GMs were and coaches were saying that's where we think it's going to go. And lo and behold, remember John Dorsey, he had this pick, wouldn't even tell his wife, which I think is a separate story.
Yeah, not sure how that one was going to go over at home. I feel like that's one that you say you'll address after the draft, and then she's going to pull him aside.
Yeah, he's going to pay the price, I think, on that one. But that's, again, a separate story for a separate day. But he kept it to himself, and lo and behold, it was Baker Mayfield, only the second quarterback at 6 foot or under 6'1", Michael Vick being the other one to be drafted number one in the draft. Obviously, we're going to get a lot into that, but that would have been more surprising had we not talked to Adam a little earlier that morning and even saw potentially that starting to come about, because we were almost in stone it was going to be one of the other two. So that stopped it from being a, oh my God, unbelievable moment to, wow, they really did it. Because even going up to the pick, even when Roger Goodell was walking to the podium, I know we were both watching it together saying, they really going to do that? Are they really going to go Baker Mayfield on this one?
Yeah, it was the, I think, cap of what had been an unreal ascension from the time Baker stepped on campus there, from the beginning of his college career to now, and even the end of the regular season, the postseason in college football. That pre-draft process, awfully kind to Baker Mayfield. The crowd last night, by the way, still not very kind to Roger Goodell, despite what was dubbed his boo shield. Jason Witten, Troy Aikman, and Roger Staubach out on stage couldn't shield the commissioner from what he had coming.
No, and he had a good line. He said, I can't believe y'all are booing these three, Cowboy legends. good line there. They all had footballs. They all threw them into the crowd. And you had a little tweet about Roger Staubach, who joined us in studio here when we were here Wednesday.
Yeah, Roger didn't tell me he was smuggling the cannon into the studio the other day. Saw him lay one out there, and so he's still got it. That game of catching the front lawn with some of his grandkids, they better be ready and have the hands up.
It was great to have those three out there. I had an event last night, and Jason Witten was there along with DeMarcus Ware. And Jason had to actually cut out from the appearance early because he had to go and be there and kind of welcome everybody in. And, I love the draft on the road. It'll continue to stay on the road. We'll see where it's going to go next. But I like that it's moving around because it was in New York for so long. Going to the different cities, seeing the people that show up. Obviously, a ton of Cowboy fans there, a ton of fans from other teams as well. 2 more nights of the draft. But it's draft 1. It's draft of the first round. And we have a bunch of players now who, that's the beauty of the draft, that all 32 teams are involved, all 32 fan bases are involved to say, okay, this guy that we just picked is supposed to help change us if we're not very good, or if we are good, continue to help us being good, and they're supposed to do it right now, except for all the quarterbacks that were taken.
Except for all the quarterbacks that we'll get to some teams where the hope seemed extinguished early. There were some fan bases that already seemed to be doubting the moves that their teams made, but someone has alerted me, shockingly, that there were actually other sports that took place last night, sports that were actually playing, and so we'll try and dive into those as best we can, as we always do with Off the Top.
It's time for Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not,
it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
But we will start with the draft. 4 quarterbacks, as you mentioned, taken in the top 10 for the first time in the common draft era, and 5 quarterbacks were selected in the first round for the third time in that span. Beginning, of course, with Baker Mayfield at number 1.
And as you mentioned, he's the only other quarterback, Michael Vick, who's 6'1" or shorter, drafted number 1 overall. Also the first former walk-on selected first overall in that span as well. And then we saw, as we mentioned, Lamar Jackson come into the top of the first round, which is a smart move that we'll get into to get that 5th-year option on that first-round pick you have with a guy like Lamar Jackson, and really all these quarterbacks, to develop more and see what you have in them. But you'll hear some good sound there, especially from Josh Rosen, who ended up going number 10 and had a word to the wise to the 9 that went before him that will be playing. But that was, listen, I said all along he was my top quarterback. He ended up going 10th in the draft, but the 4th quarterback chosen. I mean, really amazing, the run on quarterbacks. And there are those, and I might be in that camp. I'm close to being in that camp where I don't know if any of these guys I would truly pick as this is a franchise-changing quarterback. Now, some of these guys are going to hit and some of them aren't. That's just the way it's going to be. But when you have them that are rated, pretty much as highly as they were in the amount of them, you knew because it's a magnified position that there were going to be this many taken.
And you know what? I don't think that they're not being a ready-made franchise changer right now is necessarily a bad thing for these teams involved.
I agree.
And being able to wean these guys along a little bit more and being a part of an NFL now that knows it's got to work harder to bring college guys into the fold and up to speed. So you mentioned him falling all the way to 10, though. A lot of value picks in that 10 to 10 range from some guys we didn't expect to be there that we'll get to later on as we continue here with
Off the Top.
The Bucks. Staving again. We're back to staving.
It's the staving word.
It's staving season.
Yeah.
They staved off elimination, beating the Celtics 97-86 to force a Game 7 on Saturday in Boston. Giannis, big night for the Greek Freak. 31 points and 14 rebounds for him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he has to do, when he's on the court, he was on the court for 41 minutes. They outscored the Celtics 91-74. In the 7 minutes he was on the bench, they were outscored, the Bucks were, by 6 points. So we go into Game 7. Celtics are 22-8 all-time in Game 7s. The Bucks are 2-7 all-time in Game 7. So we'll see. We'll see which young players take control because we know, obviously, the Celtics have that guy in both Jaylen Brown and Tatum as well, the young guys, and Rozier with his shooting. And let's see who steps up. Outside of Antetokounmpo, is it going to be Middleton, Brogdon, Bledsoe? Who steps up there? You expect, again, the big guys to be big in Game 7, but who's going to be maybe that ancillary, that role player that steps up big? But the ball will be in the hands of Antetokounmpo. A couple games ago when he only took 10 shots, that's the glitch in all this. You're not going to see that again.
Yeah, no, you can't afford that. The 21 assist opportunity game that his teammates only converted 9 of should have served as a stern reminder that, especially in this series where you're going up against, let's call it Boston, overall team function much better, a much better X's and O's basketball team than Milwaukee, who's just going to give it to their great players. You mentioned Middleton, who's been the other prime performer in this series for them. Can the singular force of Giannis, can he have another one of these great young career-defining games to lift this team in a Game 7? We will see as we continue with
Off the Top.
And we're going to do some hockey last night, and the Penguins did some hockey, overcoming a 2-goal deficit to beat the Caps 3-2 in Game 1 of their second-round series. Jake Getsel with a goal and 2 assists on a night where while the draft was going on and you had some fan bases getting their hearts ripped out early, the Caps, they're more than used to this feeling.
Unbelievable. Being down 2, whether in a series or in a game, they just can't hold it. And so they're the Penguins down 2 here. They get the 3 goals in, a little under 5 minutes. Just an incredible run by them in the third period. Capital fans, Capital players have to be sick. But it's one of those things that I've talked about this, can get in your head. I absolutely, when I was in Philadelphia and how it was working, in the NFC East, if we had the Giants number for a bit, the Redskins had our number for a bit. You see that at times, and it can just get in a player's mind when it's going well sometimes, like Washington up 2-0. You're like, it's in the back of your head. Okay, what's going to happen here? It's happened before. Is it going to happen again? Can we overcome it? And sure enough, it happens again.
And when you can't overcome it, having one of the best players of your generation in Alexander Ovechkin, that creeps in doubly to your head. Like, man, we're supposed to be able to say, we've got this guy, we're good, and that doesn't end up working out. So we'll have more from the Do That Hockey column later as the NHL is trying to encourage one of the players left in the playoff run to put his freak flag away.
Yeah, you're gonna like this story because you don't usually associate what he's doing with hockey. It's usually on certain selections of television stations, in a hotel or something.
Yes, exactly. A little HBO After Dark in the NHL right now. There we go, and we're moving on as we always do with
Off the Top.
The Golden Knights defeated the San Jose Sharks 7-0 in Game 1 of their second-round series as they continue let's call it what it is, a dominant postseason run, although one that featured much more offense than we saw in their first-round series.
Yeah, the first-round series, they had a sweep in the entire series. 4 games, 7 goals. 1 game here, 7 goals. Absolutely, people getting their sodas, their beers, their food before the first goal, as the first goal was being scored. An absolute demolishing of the Golden Knights over the Sharks in this one, 7-0. Again, the goalie Marc-Andre Fleury, 13th career playoff shutout, 3rd this season. Right now, he is 13 shutouts are the most among active goalies as well. So he's playing well. The offense is on fire here. But you're right, for a record year that they're having, they somewhat had a record too of only 7 goals to get 4 wins in the last series, which they'd like to improve upon. Even though they won the series, I would say they did that fairly well.
Yeah, the largest playoff win by an NHL team in its inaugural season, so they continue to stack that record book of firsts in this inaugural year, and I feel like we're running out of things to say about this team at this point. This is a very good hockey team that people are going to have to get used to. I saw a lot of people on Twitter still kind of reacting to the idea of hockey in Las Vegas that now seems like it's here to stay.
And the most important thing is those guys in the locker room and on the ice all think they can win Lord Stanley's Cup. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I know that the big buildings in Vegas have made them co-favorites to do it, and a lot of surprise still amongst fans. But those players, I don't think there's any doubt in their mind they're confident they can run this thing out.
Absolutely. All right, so from the ice to the hardwood, we continue with
Off the Top.
The Cavs are in Indiana to take on the Pacers in Game 6 tonight with the 3-2 advantage. LeBron James teams have won 11 straight potential closeout games, with his last loss coming in Game 5 in 2014.
And let's see if the Pacers can do something to LeBron that's never been done. LeBron has never faced an elimination in the first round of his career. And he's only faced elimination in the East 3 times during his run of 7 straight finals appearances. So, if the Pacers were to win, this would be the first time in the first round he would be facing elimination. We'll see what happens. Again, I would imagine he's going to come out strong. He's going to want to end this series. You don't want the series to go 7. You'd like to have a little bit extra rest here. But we'll see, because the Pacers just don't go away. They're not going away. Even when the Cavs are getting those big leads at times, the Pacers are coming back. And a quick side note, we saw in the 2-minute report. The 2-minute report by the NBA, they said they did blow it. They said that should have been a goaltending on LeBron James, and it was not called and could not be reviewed again because it wasn't called, and play continued even though it went to a timeout. So the referees, akin again to when I was playing ball to get that letter on Monday that said, hey, you know what happened on there that really maybe kind of hurt you guys? That's our fault. That's our bad, and we're sorry, which means absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing to the players involved, to the fans involved who have to live with the results regardless. But I'm sure they're hoping this morning that as you had the out-of-bounds call and that missed goaltending call, the people just say, well, they kind of wash out.
Kinda
we'll call
out,
it even, and we'll just get ready for an exciting Game 6 in this series. So that's coming up tonight. That was Off the Top. Golic and Wingo live from Arlington here in Texas for the draft, brought to you by DXL. And let's get back to that. We ate our vegetables, so now that we can get to dessert. We got all these other sports out of the way. Let's sound off on the NFL draft. It's brought to you by ADT. Considering home security, consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. Visit ADT.com and learn more. And we started right at the top yesterday. The story going in was quarterbacks, and I think the story coming out was still quarterbacks, but from the minute Baker Mayfield finally went number 1 overall to the Browns, it seemed like we mixed up this bag with the teams that had been involved and mentioned with quarterbacks in ways that we hadn't really worked out yet before.
And for the Cleveland Browns, I mean, we were just about so sure that it was going to be either Darnold or Allen at 1, and then if Saquon was available at 4, if not, Bradley Chubb would be at 4. None of it. None of it by the Browns.
Throw it all
and
out.
I mean, that was Twitter world last night is the Browns. They're finding a way to screw it up. They can't get out of their own way. Even with the new GM in John Dorsey, they go with a quarterback that we just learned that was getting more love. Obviously, they knew that. The Browns did. And Baker Mayfield, and then we'll get to it. The 4th pick, Bradley Chubb was available, but they went to Denzel Ward, the cornerback out of Ohio State. We'll get to that, and I'll give you my reasons for why I think they did that. Listen, I said it all along. I think picking Baker, Josh Rosen was my number 1 quarterback. He went 4th. So I obviously think it was a mistake to take Baker Mayfield number 1. That said, as I said on Twitter last night, the Cleveland Browns felt Baker Mayfield was the number 1 quarterback out of all the quarterbacks. And they needed to take a quarterback, so they did absolutely positively what they should do. And we can all have our opinions about it, and the Browns don't care about our opinions, as they shouldn't care about our opinions. So I think it was the wrong pick, but they did the right thing if they feel Baker Mayfield, and they obviously do, is the best quarterback of the group. So from that standpoint, I get it. I get why they did it. It was like when Ryan Tannehill went as high as he did for the Miami Dolphins, and a lot of people were shocked. I'll never forget Ron Jaworski saying that same thing. Listen, if that's who they had on their board, then that's what they need to do. If you need to trade up to get you think as a franchise quarterback, whatever you have to do, you do. And that's what the Browns did by selecting Baker Mayfield number 1.
And we could certainly understand and respect that, but part of the process is also understanding that there's a reason we look at some of those moves sideways later on. It's because not every NFL team is a group of great talent evaluators.
Right.
And so you can have someone rated as high as you want. We could still look at that and believe that's probably going to be a mistake later on. So it's going to be interesting which of these quarterbacks and the pairings that they're now in, we look back on in a few years and say, that might seem like a mistake. Now, I don't know if it's something, too, with the D-line position, but you guys have a weird sensitivity about quarterbacks because your D-line brethren who joined us not too long ago, and Chris Canty, who works for us at 98.7 ESPN in New York, was on ESPN Radio yesterday agreeing with you that the Browns made a mistake at the top of the draft.
I'm shocked at this pick, Gary. I'm shocked at it. Quite frankly, I think it's a mistake for the Cleveland Browns to take Baker Mayfield, but we'll find out soon enough because he is going to a franchise that has been searching for a franchise quarterback all the way back to when they made that mistake and drafted Couch with the number 1 overall pick in 99. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know that Baker is the outlier. We've already talked about guys of his stature not having success at the NFL level. We'll see what happens.
And I think at this point, that's the one thing people seem to be able to go back on. Maybe 2, if you count Baker Mayfield's off-the-field issue. We saw a video of the arrest yesterday, as that was Chris Canty from the draft coverage for ESPN Radio yesterday evening. And I just think at this point, that seems too easy to focus on the height and say that's going to be the piece here that really undermines this. We understand the comps that people have thrown out. We can talk about that till we're blue in the face. It's looking at this quarterback and what he's already been able to produce, and maybe that's just in another situation for people where they think Baker Mayfield can't overcome it, because that's been the hallmark of his career. If you're a Browns fan trying to sell on the other side, you're saying this guy came in as a walk-on to 2 Division I programs, found his way to start at both, and was a Heisman Trophy winner at the second, took his team to the college football playoff in multiple seasons. That seems to be an area where he thrives.
See, and I may sound like the Debbie Downer here, and this isn't just about Baker Mayfield. This is in total. There can be these great stories in college, right, of overcoming, like he did, walk on 2 times, overcoming what was supposed to be, the height factor, and just finding a way to win. And you know what that means going to the NFL? Not a ton. I'm sorry, it just doesn't mean you see the personality traits, and you say, okay, maybe he has that it factor, possibly, or players like to play with him, but then you get on the field. And I got tired of the comparisons. I don't like that stuff. He's not Russell Wilson. He's not. He's not as fast as Russell Wilson. He's not as elusive as Russell Wilson. But you want to compare him to Russell Wilson, and he's not as accurate as Drew Brees. Drew Brees has been accurate in the NFL at a 70%
But that's
clip.
also not fair to say he's not accurate. We just don't know that yet because he was accurate in the one area we could ask him to be.
I agree. But I'm talking about the comparisons. I don't want to hear the next Drew Brees and the next Russell Wilson. I don't want to hear it until you can say, does he have the traits that play like that? Okay, but he isn't doing that.
Well, I don't think anyone's saying he's doing it. I think you look
way too much of it.
I think you just look. I mean, that's an us problem. That's not a him problem. That's us trying to force feed that stuff to fans.
My fault. This isn't on Baker Mayfield. This is the analysts and everybody bringing up those names. I don't like it. He is not Russell Wilson and not going to be Russell Wilson because he's not as fast as Russell Wilson. He is going to get caught by defensive linemen, as Russell Wilson does at times. And I don't know about his accuracy because you can't just discount the fact that Big 12 quarterbacks struggle in the NFL. You have it noted time and time again until they prove it at the next level. And we haven't seen it yet. So you can be as accurate as you want in the Big 12. I'm still going to have question marks. I don't care what conference you're in, but the Big 12 has a history of not turning out quarterbacks that do well in the NFL. So that's why I'm going to wait and see on this one, and I don't care about whatever completion percentage in the Big 12. A good percentage. It concerns me more when you have a bad completion percentage like Josh Allen, and that was a big red flag for me. I see a 70% completion in the Big 12. I'm like, okay, let's see if you can do that at the next level. I'm not so sure it's going to happen.
I think removing that much context is dangerous, though. When you just say raw completion percentage and conference that you play in, it removes the idea of what was your team's specific playbook. Robert Griffin III and those guys that came out of Baylor were always slighted because that was a program that we know didn't have a concrete playbook. They worked in a different set of circumstances there. You could look at a guy like Johnny Manziel, who notably throughout the draft, and now we've heard more since, wasn't a guy that was in the film room, wasn't a guy that studied things a lot. All of these things seem to be different with Baker Mayfield. Lincoln Riley runs a much more complicated offensive scheme there in Oklahoma. They have more of a concrete playbook. By all accounts, this is a guy that's put the work in all those avenues to be successful in that regard.
They all put the work in.
But Johnny Manziel, the other name, if we're talking about, and I shouldn't say Big 12, that was an SEC. I'm thinking the old Big 12.
Johnny Manziel didn't put the work in.
Gets that same moniker of a guy, and I think that's more because that was one of the other comps that continuously got thrown around.
I think we're going to get two. Yeah, and that was unfair, and I agree to Baker Mayfield. I am going to be interested now because they're relying on two. Baker Mayfield, and let's remember Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid traded way up to get him, and Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs basically jettisoned a quarterback who was playing really well in Alex Smith to say Patrick Mahomes, again, a Big 12 guy, is our guy. They can't rave enough about him, so we're going to see. We have seen a Big 12 not do well. We have two really good possibility of quarterbacks who can change that.
An important note about fit that will come off that. Coming up, we'll also hear from one of the quarterbacks picked up in the top 10 and wasn't happy about his landing spot. But plus, we'll give you the best moment from the draft last night and the biggest surprise from the first round.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Every deck is made for standing on, but there's only one that's always had a way of standing out. So if you're looking to bring more style, comfort, and creativity to your life outdoors, Call on the brand that's known for making the most in outdoor living. From decking, railing, and lighting to furniture, fencing, and framing. At Trex, we're engineering what's next in outdoor living. To learn more about all of the outdoor solutions Trex has to offer, call 1-800-289-TREX or visit Trex.com. That's TREX.com.
It's Golic and Wingo on the road, presented by Progressive Insurance, live from Arlington, Texas for the NFL Draft. And normally, Trey Wingo is in this chair. Trey is off preserving the voice. Last night, we heard him getting after it on the NFL Draft.
Yeah, he was only supposed to be on for an hour today. I don't know if he'll make it in. If anybody who watched it last night, you hear his voice was starting to go. So we may see him this morning. We may not, and we'll carry on.
We will carry on, but usually I am in the 4 to 6 a.m. time slot before you guys, first and last on ESPN Radio. Be sure to check it out. But Backstreet Boys Friday is a staple around our parts, and so I wanted to carry it over for your guys' audience.
I'm happy we can bring it all together because, we should all be a family here. Oh, wait, we are.
Exactly. Yeah, I see what you've done.
Before we go forward, let me say one thing. First and foremost, appreciate all the fans that have come out this morning. The last
couple of days.
And also, I'm already starting to see it. And let me just say overall, when people start saying, you're being a hater, and not just me, but others that are going to criticize picks, I need you all to understand something. We don't hate players, okay? I hope every one of these players is great. But is every one of these players going to be great? No. Our job is to analyze how we think they're going to play at the next level. Some we think will do well, or me. Some I don't. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to analyze it. So if I say something about a player that I think is going to struggle at this level, it doesn't mean I hate them. It doesn't mean I don't want them to succeed. I want them all. I want Baker Mayfield to succeed. He's playing for my hometown team. They need somebody to turn around. I hope he does well. There is no hate. Why am I going to hate a 20, 21, 22-year-old that I don't even know? Our job is to break them down on tape and say what we think is going to happen next. So let's try and leave that part out of it. Let's stick to what the relevancy of actual play on the field. Okay, I feel better now.
You feel good? You got that one off your chest?
It just gets, you're a Baker Mayfield hater. No, I don't hate any of these. I don't know any of these kids enough to hate them or dislike them. I want them all to succeed, but all of them won't succeed.
All of them won't succeed. They will all have plenty of haters, though, so you're just first in the line.
Well,
you just got an early head start. But a lot of haters in this draft, and a lot of guys, I think more so than ever, we're dealing with a group of athletes that are aware of that because of social media and just because of the way guys are personality fit-wise. You had the biggest night of a lot of these guys' lives. You had all of this life-changing moments, and we had it take place in a different order than we expected. One of those names that got called a little bit later was Josh Rosen. Had 3 quarterbacks taken in front of him, 9 players, and we heard from him last night in the immediacy, in the immediate aftermath of this pick, the newest quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals sounding off about being upset at being skipped over by 9 teams.
There were 9 mistakes made ahead of me, and I will make sure over the next decade or so that they will know that they made a mistake. I was pretty if I fell. 1, 2, and 3. Went by, and just kind of went into a blur after that. I was really angry. Teams were passing on me, and I was honestly expecting to get picked at some point and have to fake a smile and go up and pretend to be happy.
Let me tell you how real this is. So we go back, and then I'll go back even further. We go back to Aaron Rodgers. Now, Greeny and I were doing radio at the draft in New York during that draft. And when Aaron Rodgers went, it was Alex Smith that went number 1, and Rodgers went in the 20s to the Packers. And we got Aaron on set with us after that pick, and he was like Joshua. He was ticked off. And we were trying to be like, man, you got drafted in the first round. Hey, 20 whatever it was, and Josh, you're 10th, man. And but these guys remember, and they take it to heart. I'll go back even further now. Last night, as I said, I was doing something with DeMarcus Ware and Jason Witten. Jason Witten got drafted in 2003 in the 3rd round. Last night, he listed the 6 tight ends that got taken ahead of him. I mean, they remember. You always remember more the negative side and what spurs you on more than anything great that you can do. A guy that's going to go into the Hall of Fame. You remember I was sixth, the sixth star. There were 6 tight ends or whatever taken ahead of me. That's what they remember. That's what Aaron Rodgers remember. We've heard others say that as well.
We just had Justin Tuck on yesterday. He said he remembered all 11 defensive ends that got taken before him.
This is nothing new, but you sit there and think, my God, dude, you were the 10th pick in the NFL draft. But he's looking at, I wasn't 10th, I was 4th. I was the 4th quarterback taken, the 4th person at my position. Now, DeMarcus Ware, last night when I talked to him, we didn't have this discussion because he was the first outside linebacker taken in the draft, so he was the top of that heap. But you get these guys remember, and they get ticked off about it.
Well, I think it's understandable because we always ask for these hyper-competitors. We always ask for guys to want it more than everyone else, to go out there and give that extra effort, to show that this is the thing that means the most to them. And that's one thing that people love to question left and right about Josh before this. And so I would be remiss to sit up here now and say, you know what, just be happy in that moment. You can't ask someone who is competitive to this level the way a lot of these guys are, the way some of these all-time greats are, to just turn it off in any given moment. That's a thing that you live all the time. And what do we hear about the Tom Brady's of the world, everyone else? They want to beat you in everything they do, in every aspect of life. This is just another competition for these guys.
Well, and listen, for those of you that like to hang on the words that people say that Cardinal fans should be happy, you hear that out of Rosen, because what was the knock on Rosen? Oh, maybe he doesn't love football as much. You saw the piece on his family after he got drafted. I mean, unbelievable, successful family. Oh, maybe he's not that into football. He could leave it at any time. Well, you get a guy here who is legitimately ticked to be not the 10th pick in the draft, but the 4th quarterback taken in this draft, and looking to prove people wrong.
And got to a point where the Cardinals traded up to get him.
Right.
So you got this other, it's sort of reminiscent of what we saw with Patrick Mahomes last year, where Kansas City goes up to get their guy because we had this guy and other players fall a little further than we were expecting last night because of all the moves that got made up top.
Yeah, we had the 6 trades in the first round, and they were one of them. Arizona jumping in front of Miami because there was a speculation that if Miami, if Rosen was available, that they may take Josh Rosen. So you saw the Cardinals get up to 10-1 in front of them. Then the Dolphins ended up taking Minkah Fitzpatrick, the defensive back from Alabama. So they made that move to try and get a guy in it for a team that has Sam Bradford, who, listen, through no fault of his own, it's a tough career because of his injuries, and you're just waiting, and let's be honest, you're waiting for him to not be able to play, right? I mean, it's unfortunately the truth. It has nothing to do with his ability, because everybody said he was the best passer in Minnesota last year, and then you have, I believe, Glenn in there as the backup, so we'll see. As we've mentioned, 5 quarterbacks in the first round, and none of them expected to really be the starter on opening day.
Yeah, it's an incredible look at the quarterbacks, and I think coming up next, we can take a look at one of the biggest surprises last night was who the Browns passed up on at their 4th overall pick, what the Giants decided to do that ultimately shaped the rest of these moves. It's incredible to look at those, plus the best moment from the draft last night, and why one GM in particular was talking about some of the things we'd be able to get at the concession stand and the food trucks out here at Golic and Wingo.
Here's a little insider travel secret. There are tons of empty hotel rooms out there just waiting to be booked. That's why there's Hotel Tonight. Hotel Tonight partners with awesome hotels to help them fill their unsold rooms, which means you get incredible deals. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can actually book up to a week in advance and up to 100 days in advance in top destinations. So download the Hotel Tonight app to start scoring better deals at better hotels now.
Saquon Barkley's been called a buffet runner by some. Golic thinks that's just the guy who clears your plates.
Feed me.
Golic and Wingo on the road, presented by Progressive Insurance.
Actually, absolutely right.
It is Golic and Wingo here on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests are going to join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And we have plenty coming up this morning to recap all of the different moves made in the draft last night, all the different players we saw come off the board, guys whose lives were changed forever. But last night's draft also had a moment that was separate from that, a guy that's already been a part of the NFL fraternity, a guy that's been a part of the Brotherhood, and a guy that suffered an unbelievable injury and is working on his way back to it. And last night we got to see him do something that a lot of people weren't sure we'd ever get to see him do again. Ryan Shazier, the Steelers linebacker, announced the 28th pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Terrell Edmonds, the safety out of Virginia Tech, whose brother went 12 slots earlier to the Bills, the first set of brothers drafted in the first round. But Ryan Shazier, an incredible moment for him personally, for the Steelers franchise. I saw a lot of players, Cam Hayward and amongst others, from that Steelers team tweeting about just the joy they had in watching their brother go out there and walk across that stage to make the pick.
You know what? And obviously to be close to him and a teammate, but both you and I are in that brotherhood of players, and when you try very hard to beat the guy in front of you and hit somebody as hard as you can, but when someone's laying on the ground, you all collectively feel for that person, and nobody wants anybody to get hurt. And we all saw it. You and I, we were watching that, saw him get hit, and the first thing any ball player does is, and really anybody, is look to see was he moving everything, and you saw he wasn't moving his legs, and there was a lot of fear on where that was going to lead to. So to see that moment of him walking out, and he has said he is playing football again. Now, he's not playing next year, and we'll see if that ever comes to fruition. And he's going to work damn hard to try and do that. But just to see the improvement to where he was able to walk out there under his own power to the podium was just an absolute incredible sight.
It was a sobering reminder, too, if we're being truthfully honest, on a night about the future of the league, guys, that this is also what you're walking into, a sport where that was a run-of-the-mill hit with Ryan Shazier.
Right.
That was not anything out of the ordinary that all of a sudden has changed his life forever. So it was a sobering moment, but one that you couldn't help but just be overcome with emotion for him. And I think that's the thing. Ryan Shazier is become the person that people have rallied around so much that I think you look at that and you only see really the positives from last night and that moment for that particular player.
It's an incredible moment. And let's quickly give you the positives of that pick. Terrell Edmonds was the pick there, the safety from Virginia Tech, who's a very talented, versatile, free or strong. He's played in both, sometimes switched on plays. He's a versatile player there. Tremaine, as you mentioned, went to Buffalo. Love that athletic linebacker and what he can possibly do. Maybe fit in for Preston Brown, the middle linebacker, and led the team in tackles last year for the Bills. Take over for him. They already have a brother in the NFL, Trey, who plays for the Saints, and their father, Pharrell, was a third-round pick for the Dolphins back in 1998. Wow.
Strong bloodlines. As I sit here on the stage, I feel even worse about the way I dropped the ball in our family. So we'll move on quickly from that, but congratulations to the Edmonds family. Yep. What an incredible accomplishment really for those guys now to all get to live out their dream together while their dad watches on is something that they'll absolutely cherish, and will be an interesting fit in Pittsburgh, a place where we know defensive back help has been necessary for them for a while there. But let's go back to the Browns, that number 4 spot where everyone assumed one thing and got another. Bradley Chubb seemed to be going away, the guy that was going to be that first defender coming off the board if they had the chance to take him there at 4, and instead they opt for Denzel Ward, the cornerback out of Ohio State, a pick that you thought at the time was a bit shocking, but the more you looked at it, made sense to you.
And first and foremost, Denzel Ward is an excellent cornerback.
Great press man guy.
Exactly right. You are getting a top-notch cornerback in the league. And Ohio State has been turning out some DBs. They have been turning out some DBs. Alabama's been turning out some safeties. With Ohio State, some cornerbacks. So Cleveland, you got a heck of a cornerback. And I know Bradley Chubb was there, and I loved Bradley Chubb watching him play as well. But I saw one tweet about Cleveland. They don't want to win in Cleveland. Yes, they do. They want to win, and these are all picks based on what their thoughts were. And we'll wait and see if it turns out to be right or wrong. Not only how well Ward plays, but then who did you pass up? Because that's always brought up, and they passed up Bradley Chubb. They like guys on that D-line. Now, they had 34 sacks last year. Myles Garrett, I believe, led the way with 7, I believe it was. They like a couple of other guys. In watching that team, they like their depth. Emmanuel Ogbah, who drafted a couple of years ago. Watch out for him. You got Nassib, who they took last year. Both those guys had 3 and 4 sacks apiece, but they like some of the pieces they have on that D-line. So that's what it was weighed against. And that's what happens in these war rooms, and that's what happens leading up to it when you're making your draft board. They just didn't decide at 4, oh my God, who are we going to take now? They knew exactly what they were going to do when it got to 4, because Bradley Chubb was there. So the opportunity was there to take him. So this is what happens with all the teams. They are ready with their board to drop into place. And that's what they wanted, because they feel they have enough depth and talent on that defensive line, and they feel they needed more help in the secondary at cornerback. So, again, you can agree or disagree, and that's the thing we do all day and up until the season starts, is we'll say, man, they passed up a guy that could really help those 34 sacks really go up, but they got a guy that could help in the secondary. And let me tell you, secondaries and D-lines work hand in hand. You get a press corner that can cover a guy really well, you're giving your D-line a little more time to rush the passer as well.
And it's always that eternal question of to draft for fit or need.
Right.
Or I should say draft best available or what need, you need. Bruce Arians, and Ian Fitzsimmons passed this note along to me. Bruce Arians said, talking about where he stands on drafting the highest player on your board versus position of need, said, you set up a draft board for a reason. You're rating the top players in your scouts, coaches' opinion from top to bottom, and you better stay true to that process. When you take a player for need over what your board has best available, then that's when you start to get in trouble. Trouble meaning losing games and leading to families losing jobs. So he's clearly on the other side of this.
Absolutely
you
right.
Draft best available. I guess the question is, too, maybe Denzel for them was higher on that board because of those things. How much of this goes into those processes? Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up next, we got a GM talking about items from the concession stands, plus Sal Pao on the Jets taking another quarterback out of SC in the top 5. Stay with us.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash."
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Being a mom is like 1,000 little jobs wrapped up into one amazing responsibility. I know from watching my own mom and how crazy it is switching back and forth from traumatic nurse to afternoon mathematician, from organizer-in-chief to five-star chef. This Mother's Day, show her how much you appreciate every job she does with a special limited-time offer from 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you get ahead of the Mother's Day rush, 1-800-Flowers will give you an exclusive 36 for 36 offer. 36 sorbet roses for just $36. That's only $1 per rose. With an impressive mix of pastel shades in pink, orange, and lavender, these roses are guaranteed to make her smile. Stunning sorbet roses are the perfect way to surprise all of the moms in your life. Wife, aunt, sister, mother. These breathtaking roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. 36 sorbet roses for only $36. It's an amazing offer, but hurry because it expires Friday. Just pick your delivery date and 1-800-Flowers will handle the rest. Don't put this off, guys. Order today from 1-800-Flowers.com. It's what mom would want you to do. To order 36 sorbet roses for only $36, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click on the radio icon, and enter code WINGO. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code WINGO. Hurry, the offer ends Friday. Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
By Progressive Insurance. Live from the site of the 2018 NFL Draft.
With the third pick, the New York Jets select Sam Darnold.
I'm really excited about being with the Jets. Couldn't be happier. I'm really excited to get there to meet the teammates.
Sam Darnold comes in. He still has some developing to do, but I think he has the most to grow and the most football in front of him in terms of what he can be.
Golic and Wingo on the road, presented by Progressive Insurance. And that's Best Life by Cardi B featuring Chance the Rapper. That and other songs like it are featured on our Amazon Music playlist, the simplest way to listen to music you love. New customers, start your 30-day free trial at AmazonMusic.com. Renews automatically. Cancel anytime. And Best Life for a lot of guys last night. Best life for us. Like sitting around watching the draft yesterday, for how much we get, I think after a while, wrapped up in too much of the coverage, and there's so much that goes into it, and especially working in this job, you're pouring through so many of the details that you're just ready for the night to get there. But then it's still just as exciting once you get there. We were just glued to it.
And how great is it that we can all sit there like you and I did and so many people did across the country and say, oh, they should have done this, or I'd have picked this guy. It is so easy for us to play Monday morning quarterback, isn't it? And if we were that GM that had to really make that decision and build that team, talk about the pressure that mounts, especially for Cleveland. We've been talking a lot about them. To try and come back from just, anonymity of how bad they've they've been. But that's the fun of this, is all 32 teams are involved. Everybody has an opinion on who got drafted, who really should have got drafted, good move, bad move. So, yeah, it is for football that's not on the field. It's about as exciting a time as there could be. And we had certainly headlines in the first round. We had 6 trades in that first round. I wasn't sure how many there were going to be there. We had the somewhat surprise, less of a surprise because of what we heard from Adam Schefter yesterday morning, that Baker Mayfield going number 1 of the Cleveland Browns. But there is storyline after storyline to talk about with these freshly minted millionaires.
And it's amazing when you talk about the pressure of the draft, because that's what we all assume. And the movie Draft Day really did the draft process no favors, because you've got Kevin Costner in here just selling the whole deal. And I was fortunate, I saw our own Bill Polian over there, who for the long time was the architect of so many great teams in Indianapolis, our Hall of Famer. And we were asking him about just everything that goes into the draft day. And he said, it's a very cordial environment. He goes, you're not insulting each other on the phones with trades. It's very cordial. You've prepared so much that you get in this moment, and for the most part, you're calmly executing the plan that you've spent the better part of the last few months putting together. So it's like anything else. It's like a player going out and practicing over and over again.
Right?
You get there and you fall back on all of the ways that you prepared. And so these crazy draft rooms that we all want to feed into, it sounds like on the insider, actually, for the most part, especially when you're as good at it as Bill Polian.
And then at the end of the day, you cross your fingers that this 20 or 21-year-old can make you look good.
My God. Good luck with that. All right, as we'll continue this morning and get you guys caught up on non-draft subject and what's trending. The Bucks staving off elimination by beating the Celtics to force a Game 7 Saturday in Boston. Giannis, 31 points, 14 rebounds. Just the third player in Bucks history with 3 30-point playoff games in one postseason. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Ray Allen, decent company.
Yeah,
there.
Pretty impressive. And how good are they when he's on the floor? It's kind of reminiscent of last year when LeBron is on the floor, and when he tried to get a minute or two on the bench, the team would basically, fall apart. But when he's on the floor, they would do well. Antetokounmpo, when he was on the floor, the 41 minutes, the Bucks outscored the Celtics 91-74. When he was off the court for 7 minutes, they were outscored by 6. So we get down to that deciding game, of which in that deciding game, it is decidedly in the favor of the Celtics, who are 22-8 all time in Game 7s, while the Bucks are 2-7.
The home team's undefeated so far in this series as well, so something to certainly keep an eye on there. As we continue with another game in the NBA, Steph Curry getting ready potentially for a game. Practice is fully questionable for the Pelicans-Warriors Game 1. He participated in his first full practice since suffering a grade 2 left MCL sprain on March 23rd.
So again, this, for those dealing with an injury. So he got the first practice. So the big thing off of that is, how does he feel after it? Right after it, and then how's he going to feel the next morning? These are the key things coming off an injury like that. Does it swell up? How much does it swell up? How stiff is it? How quickly the next day can he get back to feeling, fresh and close to 100%? These are the things you're looking for of when he's going to play, because when he starts to play, do you manage the minutes to deal with that as well? You don't want to rush him back. They're not, certainly it's the start of a series. You don't need him in Game 1. If you can get him out there for some minutes, great. But this is all that's going on behind the scenes right now. How is he reacting to full go practices?
Yep, those conversations are important, and honesty there. Steph, I'm sure, wants to be back as much as anyone else, but there's got to be an honest dialogue between both sides so that they can do what's in the best interest of what we're seeing more and more of is probably still that franchise's most important player, even if you can argue KD's the best. All right, we roll on here. There it goes. Gary Sanchez belts a 3-run home run to the left in the bottom of the ninth as New York Yankees beat Minnesota 4-3 for the Yankees' 6th straight win.
Yeah, Sanchez, it's his first career walk-off home run, first walk-off home run victory when trailing by multiple runs, since you got to go all the way back to 2016.
Hey,
Mark Teixeira did it against the Red Sox. But you look at the Yankees right now, they were behind Toronto. They're a game ahead of them now. They've won 8 in a row, 8-2 in their last 10. But the Red Sox are 7-3 in their last 10 and won 2 in a row. They're 4 ahead of the Yankees still. But this is just we've talked about this with the Yankees. We'll see how the pitching goes, but the hitting, man, pick a guy. Pick a guy that's going to knock one out of the park for you or have a big night for you. They certainly have more than a few of those players.
Absolutely. The Yankees will go for 7 in a row facing off against the Angels tonight. You can catch that game on the brand new ESPN Plus starting at 10 p.m. Eastern. All right, that is what's trending around here. What's trending, of course, in the NFL draft, and what's trending for us right now. Here is our own NFL reporter, Sal Paolantonio, who joins us now via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. And Sal, we got the reports during our show here yesterday about the potential of Baker Mayfield to the Browns. It was a move that we were all waiting to see, to believe, and now that it's finally happened, now that it's finally come to fruition, is there still any sense of shock around the league to this pick actually being made?
Well, there's definitely no shock for me, that's for sure, and there was no shock for the New York Jets, Mike. There was no shock for me because I had Baker Mayfield as the number 1 overall quarterback in this draft. I told Mike and Trey earlier in the week that Baker Mayfield, to me, had all the intangibles. He had great accuracy. He was a winner at every level. He had no fear. I thought he was a plug-in and play from week 1 on at the NFL level, and I think the Cleveland Browns will make him a starter right away. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to sit around and wait his turn. He is going to force his way onto the field. So it wasn't a shock for me. And it wasn't a shock for the Jets because the Jets thought that Baker Mayfield would go number 1, and that's why they brought Sam Darnold into their facility in the 11th hour. And when I talked to Todd Bowles, the head coach of the Jets, he said they talked to Sam Darnold, and he wrote down in his private scouting report notes that he keeps a couple of phrases after talking to Darnold, and he shared them with me. Very engaging, quote unquote, very intelligent, a hell of a competitor. They just felt like Sam Darnold would be perfect for them at this juncture of them rebuilding this franchise. And he said he was looking for a guy who was going to turn around the franchise, and they believe that Sam Darnold is that guy.
And Sal, we know how it works. Every pick that goes, especially in the first round, the team is going to say, we got the guy we absolutely wanted. In this case, did the Jets feel they got the second best quarterback in this draft?
No, I believe that the Jets felt like Sam Darnold. So, Michael, right after he came in and talked to the Jets, Darnold shot up to number 1 on their board. He was the number 1 player on their draft board.
So, Sal, I just want to double back to something quick because you mentioned it, that the Jets thought that Baker would go number 1 overall. When did they get that sense? Was that purely based on the way they had evaluated Baker, or was this off something they had heard?
Well, that's what happens. You know how this goes, Mike. Everybody talks to one another, and they talk to the agents, and they just kind of, slot players on their board. That's why the Jets moved up from 6 to 3. They thought, okay, this is the way it's going to go, and they thought that the Giants would. Now, here was the big problem, right? They thought the Giants would take Saquon Barkley at number 2, so they thought at 3 they could get one of the top 2 quarterbacks. But they weren't real sure about whether somebody would jump ahead of them. Once Baker Mayfield was taken at number 1, that someone would jump ahead of them at number 2 and get Darnold at 2. That was the real fear. And that was a fear that was expressed to me when I arrived at the facility on Wednesday. They were really concerned that somebody would jump up. And I was wondering if the Jets would get on the phone with the Giants and do that Chicago-San Francisco swap, right? But the problem is, if they invested 3 more picks at going from 3 to 2, that means they would have had invested 6 overall picks to go from 6 to 2 to draft a quarterback that's not totally flawless. So I don't think they would have done that.
Talking to Sal Pal about the Jets' first-round pick right now. We'll get into the Giants' pick, and some people think maybe the wrong pick at Saquon Barkley, even though everybody loves that guy. But one more from me on the Jets. You mentioned, the 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. I don't know if anybody will be on the field on opening day. You think Baker Mayfield may? We'll see what goes on with he and Tyrod Taylor. What's the plan with the Jets, who have Josh McCown? They brought him back. He'll be a great person in that quarterback room, but maybe being the starter. Brought in Teddy Bridgewater as well. So what do you think the plan is for a Sam Darnold?
Well, I think Sam Darnold will go in as the number 3 quarterback on their depth chart. It'll be Josh McCown, it'll be Teddy Bridgewater, and then Darnold. And then I think they'll work Darnold on his way up the depth chart. Listen, I am skeptical about Darnold. Don't get me wrong now, Michael. There's a lot of turnovers and a lot of bad habits in the pocket that have to be fixed. And Jeremy Bates, the offensive coordinator, is going to have to work with Sam Darnold to tell him, listen, we had a quarterback here from USC named Mark Sanchez, and turnovers were his undoing. And we don't want deja vu all over again. This is something that they're going to have to work on and practice and get right. He's a very young man. He's coming into the New York market, and there's going to be a spotlight on him like he's never seen before. He looks like he's got the makeup to handle it, but, you look at him on tape and you see the way he's loosey-goosey with the football in the pocket and how his trigger point is below his hip and about how he's only got one hand on the football. He's got to get that left hand on the football. The football's got to come up above his shoulder, above his chest, and the launch point of the football's got to be above his chest, and he's got to start protecting the ball or it's going to be an issue for sure.
Sal, I want to look at now the other team in New York, the Giants. You mentioned that number 2 overall pick that the Jets were worried about there, but now we're hearing all these quotes from Dave Gettleman after the fact saying that Saquon Barkley, the running back out of Penn State, was overwhelmingly their guy in this spot. Is that post-draft talk now that they got the guy that they got at that spot, or was there ever serious consideration for a quarterback at this 2 pick?
No, I'm going to take Dave Gettleman at his word. I always have. I've covered him for years. He's not a guy that's going to blow different colored smoke. He's a guy who's going to shoot you straight. And I always believed that they were going to take Saquon Barkley because I believe that Eli Manning has a lot left. He certainly has at least 1, maybe 2 years left. I think you look at Tom Brady and what they do and what they have done to prolong his longevity, protect him, bring in different running backs, different options on offense, make sure that he has the right run-pass option at the line of scrimmage. So Saquon Barkley is going to do so much for that team. They already have a pyrotechnic set of wide receivers if Odell Beckham Jr. comes back from that nasty ankle injury 100%. They've got a tight end. And in the current NFL, you can control the middle of the field because they play a different game. I hear Louis Riddick talk to me about it all the time on the matchup show, the way the game has changed, the way the tight end can control the middle of the field between the hash marks. They had that in Ingram. So if you can do that and run the football and a guy comes out of the backfield and you got to put a hat or two and dedicate him to Saquon Barkley, boy, that's going to open up outside the hash marks for Odell Beckham Jr. And they're going to have, I think, a lot of more success on offense. And then you bring in a guy like Pat Shurmur and the design of his offense and the way he handled Case Keenum in Minnesota. I mean, this has the makings of a major, major turnaround, I believe, for Eli Manning. And that's why I think they went Saquon Barkley and had every intention to do so right from the get-go. Of course, now they got to face Jim Schwartz and that Eagles defense twice a year. Pat Shurmur didn't do such a good job in that. I just got to throw that in there, that NFC Championship game. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely right. I would be shocked if you didn't, Sal. All right, Sal, you talk Jets, you talk Giants, but you're a man of the people. What in that first round, of anything, shocked you the most of the entire first round?
I'm going to stay with my guys, with the Birds, down at 32. I know, and we talked about this earlier in the week, right? You guys asked me sleeper. I said Sony Michel, the running back out of Georgia, and I knew the Eagles at 32 loved him, Michael. They loved him. They talked to him, brought him in, worked him out. Absolutely thought at 32 he would be perfect, and a perfect addition because Jay Ajayi's probably got one more year. LeGarrette Blount's gone. They needed a foundation back. And what do the New England Patriots do but take him at 31? I was sitting there and I'm like, there goes Bill Belichick once again. And it was a great move for the Patriots. And I think it shocked the Eagles. And then they moved down. They had intentions, but maybe moving down if they couldn't get the guy that they wanted. And the Patriots took him, and then they had to move down.
Incredible stuff and a great surprise indeed. Sal, you're the best. We appreciate you taking the time this morning.
Thanks, Sal.
Oh, it's so beautiful to watch a father and son on the radio like that. It's a beautiful family thing. I'm jealous of you guys. That's fantastic.
Thanks, Sal. Appreciate that very
Sal.
much.
Appreciate it.
Wish my son would listen to me a little more.
That was ESPN NFL reporter Sal Paolantonio on the show Pennzoil Performance Line as I seamlessly transition away from that.
Nicely done. So much to get into, and part of it is New England with their 2 picks. Everybody wondering what they're going to do with them. Where are they going to move? They keep their picks and they make them, and they get teammates in Isaiah Wynn, the lineman, and then Sony Michel. We'll get into that. We have still so much more to cover, but that number 2 pick and Gettleman I thought was interesting if they were looking for any kind of trade partners, what went on.
And Dave Gettleman, not a stranger, a lot different than what they used to have in that spot at the GM with the Giants, a guy who's a little bit more willing to get out and talk to you in the media, and came out and talked exactly about that, why he didn't do something like trade away that number 2 overall pick.
You know, people call you and they want the second pick of the draft for, a bag of donuts, a hot pretzel, and a hot dog. It's like, you get away, leave me alone. I ain't got time to screw around.
I'm not going to lie, Dave seems like the kind of guy that would make that trade.
I got a box of donuts, man. What am I getting for it? Huh? What am I getting?
I feel like the box of these donuts might be worth a Saquon Barkley to you.
How about it?
Big Dapper donut fans, but Dave Gettleman always struck me as the kind of guy that would appreciate the value of a good hot dog and a box of donuts. But
I would think so as well. I mean, I think for a lot of people it was a no-brainer to take Saquon Barkley too, but not everybody. I know Timmy Hasselbeck, and we'll play his sound at some point, didn't like the pick. There are others that didn't like the pick as well, of thinking you should have gotten that quarterback, that next quarterback, with Eli being 37 years old. But you can see it both ways. Do you prepare for the future? But certainly if you're a player on that team, and I know we do a lot of things from a player's perspective, you want a guy that can come in and help you right now. You're not looking at the next quarterback. You're looking at this next year, this next mini camp, this next training camp, and week 1 of the NFL. And Saquon Barkley is a guy, obviously, you put right on the field, and he's going to be a weapon for you offensively.
That is always the tough balancing act for an organization and for the fan base who often looks at the bigger picture, especially for teams that might be a bit away. And that team, if you're a player, you want to feel like you came out of this draft and you won now. And Saquon certainly gets you that. There's been the larger conversation that Sal hinted at there about where and when you can take a running back. That's why I think it's as interesting and important as anything that New England was the one to come up and take a running back at the end of the first round there, because we've heard all about, well, New England doesn't value the running back position. They work with a stable of guys there, and they don't make any one guy more important than the other. Well, I understand it was at the end of the first round, but that's still a first-round draft pick you spent on a running back in 2018 after we saw one go at 2 overall, and one in, all things considered, in Saquon Barkley, who transcends just the label of running back. He's a middle-of-the-field weapon.
And then the other side of that, you always have to remember who's on the roster. We talked about that with Denzel Ward, going at the cornerback at number 4 for Cleveland and not taking Bradley Chubb. And I think a lot of it is they like what they have on the defensive line and felt there was a bigger need in that secondary. Maybe this is a feather in the cap for Davis Webb. The young quarterback out of Cal, the 3rd-round pick in 2017, that we've heard a lot that they like him a lot there.
And we've chosen not to believe it just because we're all skeptical.
Yeah, because he's not the name, that first-round quarterback. But you know what? We're not at practices, and we're not seeing what's going on. There's plenty of people there that like him, and I'm sure he was a guy that went, okay, they didn't take a quarterback at number 2 to be the heir apparent. Doesn't mean he's locked in as the heir apparent.
No, but that is always nice to get on a draft weekend.
Without it. Believe me, for guys certainly in our position, Now, he was a second rounder. We weren't. You look at the draft every year, and you see who teams are taking if it's your position.
You understand that fourth round up is usually not a place that indicates they've got you in their future plans. Exactly. So Davis Webb gets to breathe a sigh of relief. New York Giants fans get to get a guy that, by all accounts, was maybe the top overall player in this draft, and Dave Gettleman is going to have to go somewhere else for his donuts.
There you go.
I'm
sure he could find a place.
All right. Golic and Wingo live from Arlington, Texas, here at the site of the NFL Draft, brought to you by AutoZone. We got a great crowd out here again with us this morning over here at the Collins Event Center, and we're really just getting started. We had 6 trades last night. We'll go live to the team that made 2 of them.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Every deck is made for standing on, but there's only one that's always had a way of standing out. So if you're looking to bring more style, comfort, and creativity to your life outdoors, call on the brand that's known for making the most in outdoor living. From decking, railing, and lighting to furniture, fencing, and framing, at Trex, we're engineering what's next in outdoor living. To learn more about all of the outdoor solutions Trex has to offer, call 1-800-289-TREX or visit Trex.com. That's TREX.com.
Golic and Wingo here on the road, presented by Progressive Insurance. We're live in Arlington, Texas, today for day 2 of the NFL Draft.
And isn't it amazing? 4-hour show we're going to have, and there's still not going to be enough time to really dive into a lot of stories. I know we're going to do Buffalo here and the 2 moves that they made, but how about just thinking about this? The Denver Broncos sitting there at 5, probably getting ready to make their pick. And then the Cleveland Browns take Denzel Ward, which is a person that they obviously bought into and wanted to take, so no issue if that was their choice. Some
Great corner out of Ohio State, a place with a brand you can trust in that position.
But then Denver going, wait a minute. We thought they were going to take Bradley Chubb. We can now take Bradley Chubb and put him on the other side of Von Miller? Are you kidding me? I mean, just sitting there, and that kind of fell right to them.
The AFC West defensively is going to be an absolute battleground coming up this season. That's a pair of bookends that you'll be hard-pressed to find better than in the NFL. So we've got all that, plenty of trench talk coming up, too. We have neglected something near and dear to us.
We have.
I'm personally disgusted with myself.
And I'm disgusted with you.
Yeah, as you should be. But before that, we'll bring in someone who no one's disgusted with. We're very happy to talk to Jeff Darlington right now, our ESPN NFL reporter, who was embedded with the Bills yesterday. And the Bills, one of the stories, trading up to get their man in Josh Allen. So, Jeff, thanks for joining us. And I guess that's where we start. What did the Bills see in this quarterback that prompted them to go up and get what I assume was their guy?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Brandon Beane wanted Josh Allen. We could talk about Darnold and Baker and if they were available, but ultimately they knew going into the day that those 2 guys were likely going 1 and 3, respectively. So they were targeting Josh Allen, and as soon as they saw at 5th overall the Broncos wind up taking Chubb, they knew they were going to be able to go back to even Tampa to get Allen, and they just love, to answer your question, they love his size, his physicality, and they love that he fits what they believe is a major need in Buffalo, and that is the ability to play in really bad weather, and that does go to speak to the fact that he is a big dude. He's got big hands, and they feel like he can handle a wet football and I guess handle the snow as well.
Certainly had to be one of the deciding factors. You figured they were going to take a Josh there, whether it was Allen or Rosen, right. And that deciding factor could have been the arm strength of the 6'5", 240-pounder. You hear the stories of him throwing that ball, and he's certainly going to have to throw it in some bad weather there. A.J. McCarron, they get in the offseason. Peterman is still there. So what's the plan for Allen as far as where initially he starts off in the expectation during the season?
Right. I mean, it's a tricky one because Allen is probably the most raw of this bunch, right? I mean, this is the guy who is perceived as being the project. Now, of course, who knows how that winds up unfolding? I remember another quarterback we talked about being the one without the the major experience, and that was Carson Wentz. And by training camp, he was figuring it out pretty quick. So I'm not trying to compare the two as much as I'm saying that things can change very rapidly. So I definitely anticipate Josh Allen being in the mix to be the early starter, but they did bring on A.J. McCarron with the thought that he is capable of at least carrying that early load as a stopgap. But by all means, Josh Allen is the guy that they are very clearly looking at as the future of this franchise.
Talking to Jeff Darlington, ESPN NFL reporter, and Adam Schefter reported yesterday that the Bills had a deal in place with the Broncos to move up to 5, but once Bradley Chubb fell there, the Broncos couldn't resist making that pick. How worried were the Bills at that point that maybe Josh Allen wasn't going to be there once that trade fell through?
Well, once they took Chubb and it wasn't Josh Allen that they were taking at that 5th pick, which they were comfortable knowing as soon as that trade did fall through, they felt like they were going to get even better value on Josh Allen, and it wasn't necessarily even through the Colts at that point. They could even wait until the Bucs. Now, they did, apparently, from talking to some people, they did spend a little bit over what the quote-unquote trade chart shows to get to that spot at 7, but they gave up far less than they were going to need to give up even just to the Broncos. So they feel like they scored pretty big there by the fact that, as you guys just mentioned, Ward going 4, and then the Broncos looking at it. And by the way, I was talking to somebody with the Broncos just before the draft was starting, and they were still like, we don't really know. We're leaving the table open right now because Saquon could wind up being there. Chubb could be there. Ward is another guy they liked. And then there was the option of trading out. So they knew that there was going to be a number of different options that were going to present themselves. Once Chubb was there, though, I mean, that was an obvious one for them, and then that was reason for celebration for the Bills as well.
Talking to our ESPN reporter and insider Jeff Darlington about the Bills. We'll get to their second pick in the first round, which will have a much more immediate impact on that team than Josh Allen, the first pick. But we all saw what happened with Josh Allen as far as the tweets that were released when he was in high school and how he had to talk about that and answer for that. It obviously didn't affect the Bills taking him, but what was, if any, there of conversation about those tweets?
Well, there was a lot of conversation. I was talking to somebody yesterday after the pick, and they were all pretty exhausted because of that in itself. I mean, they knew that they were going to have to – they didn't know if they were necessarily going to wind up being able to get Josh Allen, especially where they did, but they definitely knew they wanted to make sure they did due diligence. They felt comfortable. They talked to Josh Allen. They talked to a lot of people around him. And they felt comfortable enough to take him. And I guess, I mean, that's where we can leave it for now. And we'll hear more from Josh today. But they felt like he handled all the questions they had for him to the point where this wasn't something that was a reflection of who he is now. So, you know, I guess the only thing I can tell you there is the Bills are comfortable making the pick, and they'll just have to deal with any repercussions that come from it.
As Dad said, their second pick in the first round, another one that they traded for from Baltimore, Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker from Virginia Tech, a little bit safer, a little more impact. Was this one that they had also identified clearly going up and trading for this guy?
Well, yeah, and one of the other things about the Josh Allen trade, the Bills had two goals going into the day, and that was to, first of all, find they knew they wanted to move up. I mean, that was a big secret. But they didn't want to give up their 22nd overall pick, which I thought going into the day they were going to have to do to get a franchise quarterback. They did not. And that was, once they saw Tremaine Edmonds sliding, what they perceived to be a bit of a slide, they were like, we got to go get this guy. And that's why they did that. I mean, this is crazy. He's 19 years old. Like, if he had stuck around, the Bills felt like this is a guy who's probably a top 5 pick next year. You know, a Butkus Award winner and a guy who's coming out who they hope they wouldn't be able to get because they hope to not be picking in the top 5 next year. So, they feel like they really scored one here, and hence the reason they made that move to jump up and get him.
All right, Jeff, well, we appreciate your time this morning. Again, no doubt that we're going to talk about it here. Edmonds going to be the more immediate impact, but the big quarterback, Josh Allen, goes to the Buffalo Bills. So, Jeff, we appreciate your time this morning. Enjoy the rest of the draft.
Yeah, guys. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Busy first round for Buffalo. Busy first round for a franchise that, like you said, I think the most compelling one in the spot where maybe outside of no, you know what I'll say, the chance where I think we could see the first round quarterback actually on the field the earliest, because I don't think A.J. McCarron, as much hype as we heard around him in the offseason, is penciled in as a day one starter the way that the guys in these other quarterback situations.
I want to get to that this morning at some point, because we heard Sal Pal say he thinks Baker Mayfield could be on the field game 1, week 1.
Oh, but Hugh Jackson told
the
us.
Well, exactly right. Yes, it's amazing when you hear that from coaches. So we're going to discuss that of the 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round, which one has a chance to actually be on the field, maybe not in week 1, but the absolute earliest. But I'll tell you, Buffalo Bill fans, Josh Allen, you're going to have to wait a little bit. But Tremaine Edmonds, you're going to love this cat. He is an athlete. As Jeff mentioned, 19, I think he turns 20 next week. 19 years old, 6'5", 250. He can play inside. He can play outside. Now he'll go inside. Preston Brown, their leading tackler last year, the middle linebacker, he's gone. So I imagine that's where he's going to go. Different to the 2 linebackers taken. Roquan Smith went to the Bears at number 8. That dude's more of a hammer. He won the Butkus Award. He's that guy that's going to stick you. Edmonds, not known as much for that. He's more that athlete. He's going to run you down. He's going to make more of that athletic move to make a play behind the line of scrimmage. So I think while Roquan is certainly an athletic linebacker, he can get there, but he definitely, in my mind, delivers more of a pop, where Edmonds is more of that linebacker to go sideline to sideline and chase you down. But you look at him and you think, boy, he doesn't look – he's 6'5", 250, and he looks thin. And, man, but when he moves, boy, he gets the job done.
Huge frame. You wonder how that transition's going to go to being an in-the-box linebacker, because he is a guy that seems more naturally fit for that outside. So
he does, because Roquan can take on those blockers in the middle.
Which is surprising, because he's not the biggest body either. But two marquee linebackers going to make an immediate impact. Coming up next, I'll tell you 2 other position groups that are going to get immediate impact and a great bump from last year's draft coming up.
Love scoring amazing hotel deals? Then you've got to get the Hotel Tonight app. Forget scrolling through never-ending lists of hotels. Hotel Tonight shows you a select list of incredible deals at hotels you actually want to stay at. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can book up to 100 days in advance in top destinations and up to a week in advance everywhere else. Want to get those deals? Yeah, you do. Download the Hotel Tonight app now.
If your hand isn't in the dirt, this isn't the show for you.
Got all the great bloodlines, home run type hitting, running back, shutdown corner.
Golic and Wingo on the road. Presented by Progressive Insurance.
Yes, we are, with more than 30 unique coverage options available. Progressive knows small business. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
It is Golic and Wingo on the road, presented by Progressive. We're live in Arlington, Texas for the NFL Draft Day 2. Getting ready to kick off here as the sun comes up. We will have plenty more guests joining us in the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Thanks to Jeff Darlington, Sal Pal for joining us already. Dave Rothenberg from 98.7 in New York is going to be mad IRL about the Giants' second overall pick.
We said most people love the Saquon Barkley pick. There are some in New York that do not like the pick at all.
And just Dave Rothenberg cares more about the Giants than most people care about their own children. So this comes from a place of love. I want everyone to know that. And this next sentiment also comes from a place of love. And it's a sincere apology that we are now almost 2 hours into the show. And I have buried the lead. I've buried the most important thing to come out of this draft, far and away, bar none. Not only did we have 2 offensive linemen drafted in the top 10, not only did we have a guard drafted 6th overall in 2018, which is a beautiful sign of things to come in the NFL, we had the Notre Dame tandem, 2 Notre Dame offensive linemen picked at number 6 and number 9 in the draft. The first 2 O-linemen off the board, and Quentin Nelson, the offensive guard, and Mike McGlinchey, the offensive tackle, who went to Indianapolis and San Francisco, respectively.
Yeah, 20% of that first round was the offensive line position and from Notre Dame. So, I mean, again, a feather in the cap of those guys, really a feather in the cap of their coach, Harry Hiestand, who you had for a year. at Notre Dame. Wish you had him for more years than that. And now Harry is with the Chicago Bears. And quite honestly, now the Chicago Bears got a great player in Roquan Smith, but I have a feeling if Quentin Nelson was available at 8, they might have taken him as well. But Harry Hiestand has turned out in the last 2 years some pretty darn good picks in the NFL.
Yeah, and just to toot his horn, because he's a guy that never would, and because he's with the Bears now really can't, but you look at the last run of Notre Dame offensive linemen, Zach Martin, a first-round pick, Chris Watt, a third-round pick, Ronnie Stanley, 6th overall to the Ravens a couple of years ago, Nick Martin, a second-round pick to the Texans, and now Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey. That run of players right there speaks to the pedigree of this coach and what he's able to do, but also the talent of these players. Quentin Nelson was a guy coming into the draft that was talked about in the same breath as Saquon Barkley, as a guy who's going to come in there and not only be pro-ready, but be a franchise changer for the next couple of years. And you can appreciate the counterpart. I thought there were two teams that had mirror drafts on the offensive and defensive lines as far as being able to, I think, benefit from a negative last season and turning a draft pick this year into a positive when you look at the situation. I want to start with Indianapolis.
Okay.
Quentin Nelson, their 6th overall pick that they get there. Instant plug-and-play guy, my favorite lineman in the draft this year.
And the line has been a mess there for years to try and protect that quarterback, and they started to build, but injuries have kept them down. So this pick, along with, I know, another guy you're high on coming back, is going to help.
Brian Kelly was probably my favorite offensive lineman in the draft last year, the center out of Alabama.
2 years ago, right?
2 years ago, sorry. Drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, but spent last season on the shelf with a foot injury. You coming to a place now where the Colts were, I think, 22nd in yards per game rushing last season, where you get both of those guys now back this year working side by side in the middle of that pocket to hopefully protect a newly and recovered Andrew Luck. You're talking about a team that could turn it around immediately this year at a position group that has so long been deficient for them.
And a team, I think, that hasn't had a 100-yard rusher since the 60s. It's been a long time, so not only protecting Luck, but maybe helping out that running game as well. So a big boost there.
Big boost there. And then on the other side, and I know you'll appreciate these two guys because of the consistent product that this school puts out. But Daron Payne last night ends up going in the first round to the Washington Redskins. He's the 13th overall pick there. He gets to join his former teammate Jonathan Allen, who spent last season on the shelf. Right. Washington was the worst rush defense in the NFL by yards per game last year, and you get both of those guys back healthy, I should say. And you know more than anyone the value of those guys being able to hold that line in the middle of the defense the way only Alabama D tackles seem to be able to.
Those guys lining up and coming off on the ball and reestablishing the line of scrimmage a yard deep is an offensive lineman's nightmare and a defensive tackle interior lineman's dream. And now two of them on that line, as long as Allen can get back and be healthy again, I'm with you. That's going to go not talked about enough because it's a position of offensive line and defensive tackle that we're talking about. But I'm with you completely, and that's what the game is, man. The game can be up the middle. You get an interior D lineman, a middle linebacker, and a safety on defense. You can be in pretty good shape. Then you get those edge rushers. But you ask any quarterback, they hate when the ball gets pushed right up the middle, or when the pocket gets pushed right up the middle at him. There were two positions that went back-to-back in their positions. You mentioned Daron Payne. He went 13-12. Went Vita Vea, who went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so 2 D tackles in a row. And then at 20 and 21, Detroit took Frank Ragnow, the center from Arkansas. Cincinnati took Billy Price, the center from Ohio State. So, again, the non-sexy positions get talked about. But Daniels from Iowa, we thought might be the first interior after Quentin Nelson to go, and he hasn't gone yet.
More of a pure center. These guys, when you look at Ragnow and Billy Price, both have a lot of experience playing guard in college as well. Lots of tape on those guys there. And not for nothing, the steal of the draft on offensive line may have been Isaiah Wynn, who's such a Patriot-esque pick of a guy who's going to be able to play multiple positions. Technically, I think maybe the second best offensive lineman in this draft. A tremendous pick, not something overly surprising for the Patriots, getting that utility at the offensive line. All right, coming up next, as we mentioned, we'll go live to New York, where one of our colleagues is furious that the Giants took the best player in the draft. Stick with us.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash."
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So